So I began the recording, and first of all, I'd just like to welcome all of you. Hopefully all of you can see my screen. If you cannot see the screen and are having trouble with seeing the screen or having trouble hearing me, please type in the chat bubble. I'm going to respond to everybody. Yes, you should have sound.
So you have sound. Let's go listen to it.
I am going to mute everyone because I'm already hearing some background noise, and I know that's distracting for others.
That's her screen.
Come in.
I don't think she started yet.
Okay.
I don't think she started yet.
Okay.
She's not talking.
Becca Merrill.
Okay, can everyone see the screen? Okay,
Yeah.
so it should be showing that I'm showing the community service documents. Again, I'll get more into community service in a little bit, but I want to make sure that everybody knows and has read through those, because community service can be a snag on the American Degree application. So just to review, because I do think we've had some issues with the both volume and the screen sharing. To review, I'm going to show you on the website the intent page. I'm going to show you on the website where the intent is. If you have not filled that out, we do need you to do that, and the community service. And then we'll get into AET, our documents, and other guidelines. So I'm typing that, and then I'm going to show that to you. So as you're looking at the screen, when you are looking at the Illinois FFA screen, you're going to go to Awards and Programs under Participate, and then under Participate, there's a link that says Degrees. You will go to Degrees, and you will see over here on this side, there's the State and American Community Service Guidelines, which is a document I already have pulled open, but I'm going to open that for you and show you. If you have any question about community service guidelines, this is where the answers will be.
Mindy,
yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm not sure if anybody else is having problems, but our screen just says paused. We can't see anything. It shows your desktop and it says paused.
Are you seeing the desktop that shows the community service guidelines?
No, it's like the desktop from your computer. It's blue with all your little icons on the left-hand side of the screen.
Same thing for me, Mindy.
Okay, let me work on that. I apologize.
There you go.
Now is my community service showing?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for catching me on that. I appreciate that. So what I want to emphasize about community service, and I think we've just had some miscommunication or just some, National FFA has definitely become very selective, in particular in their community service. So the big thing that everyone needs to understand is if you work an event, your FFA works an event, and you work a fundraiser for your FFA chapter, that is not community service, because you are a member of that chapter and you working that fundraiser, that organization that you're a part of is the benefactor. So it has to be FFA is doing some community service for someone else. Same way with church. National FFA is not anti-church, but what they're saying is if you are a member of a church, and your church does a fundraising activity, and the benefactor of that activity is your church, then that is not community service. However, if your church does a fundraising activity and the benefactor of that is a local food bank or an organization that is a women's shelter or helping the homeless, if the benefactor is, quote unquote, the community, then that's counted as community service. So regardless of what your organization is doing, if your organization is doing a fundraising event or an event where the people that benefit from the event are the people that belong to the organization, whether it's FFA or church, then that's not community service, because you did something for the club that you belong to or the church or the organization that you belong to, and you were the benefactor. But if you did something in that church or in that FFA chapter or organization and other people were the benefactor, they were the recipients of your time commitment, then that is community service. That is the biggest, I think hopefully that's the easiest way for me to clear up the discrepancies in community service. But I will tell you, when we sent our applications to National FFA last year, in July, I had about 37 of our apps that were sent back to us at the state level to fix, and probably 20 of those 37 issues dealt with community service. So when I tell you that pay attention to these community service guidelines, please pay attention to that. If you have any question about it, email me, and hopefully we can clear that up. As I say email, I'm checking to see if anybody's typed in the chat. I also mentioned this before. If it's a philanthropy event that's not making money and it's just an event that is you're doing something for a community, that's fine. It's you know, if you are doing, you're working the blood drive or you're working the coat drive or you're working an event, you're feeding people. You can work meals and events. Again, they just can't be making money for the organization that you belong to that's doing it, because otherwise it just looks like you're working for yourself, essentially. So I will try to keep an eye on the chat bubble and type in answers, but if you have questions at any time, feel free to interrupt via the phone or jump on and hit that chat bubble and type in questions you have.
Hey, Mindy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, on that philanthropy scenario, if they are raising money to give to another organization other than the fraternity itself, will that be okay?
Yes. If you're raising money and you give the money away, that's fine. But if you raise the money and the money goes back to pay for the FFA chapter ski trip, that's not fine, because that's not deemed community service.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to type. As I said, I'm not the best at typing and talking. As long as the organization is not the benefactor of the philanthropy that you belong to.
Sounds like that doesn't count. If a group that's doing work and benefiting to pay to go do something else, it sounds like that's not count.
So I'm saying if you belong to it, like if you're in the, I'm trying to think. So you're in Ducks Unlimited, and FFA does a fundraising event and then gives the money to Ducks Unlimited. You know what I'm trying to say? You are then still the benefactor of that event that you worked at. It has to be, you're not a part of Toys for Tots. You're just raising the money for Toys for Tots to give them the money. That's totally fine. And if you're a recipient of one of the toys, that's not fine. You're working for yourself. It's the major item where National FFA gets particular on community service. Again, the community service document is here. Read through it. It will give you what's unacceptable and what's acceptable. And I think that they give a lot of really great examples, and I think that would be very helpful, or is a very helpful tool. Again, that tool is found on our website under Participate, Awards and Award Programs and Scholarships. Then click on Degrees, and then you will see it here off in this little box here off to the right-hand side. And that is where the state and American degree community service requirements are. We use the same requirements for state degree as we do American degree. Then scrolling on down, I talked about intent. We have 113 students have turned in an intent. If you have not, and you can still, it's still open. I just ask for the intent to be put in your intent in early January 15th, so that I can share that with section chairs, and they know how many students in their section are intending to apply for the American degree, because you do have to go through a verification process with your section chair, basically showing them your books and your app, and essentially section chairs have from January 15th, or when I share the document, which would be now today, until April 1 to verify the project at the section level. So the intent is here on our FFA website, and this is what it looks like. And the best part about the intent is it helps us figure out when you would like to have those interviews. You can see our interview days are set in April, and it gives us an idea of when you can do that. So that's the intent, not required, but very helpful for our office on our end. Then the next document that's on our website that I already have pulled up, but that I will show you in a little bit greater detail, and then I said then I'll dig into AET, is our Illinois Procedures and Practices. As I mentioned before, but I'm afraid I may have been muted or I wasn't able to be heard by some, Illinois does follow a little bit different requirements than other states. We do still require an interview, and we require the books to be seen at the section at the state level to verify the application. So we are a little bit different than some other states in that realm. Our interview is something we still believe in our state, and we also use the interview to determine our stars. The biggest thing that it's in yellow highlight, and I just mentioned that, is that all qualified candidates must bring their record books to the interview, and they must show their record books to their section chair for their validation. So, for their verification. That's called the section verification process. And section chairs are familiar with that. And again, I will share those who've turned in intents with the section chairs here very soon. I will walk through our timeline and then give you an idea of kind of our process. Between the intent and April 1, as I said, the section chair will work with the American degree candidates in their section and verify their state or American degree application. They'll ask you a series of questions. They fill out an online Google form. We get that form. One of the very last questions is, do you recommend this student for their American degree? And if they say no, then we will be reaching back out to them to find out, what are some of the reasons why they would not. So what you have to do by March 1 is complete the application, and you email us the PDF of your application. When I get into our system, I will see we probably have maybe close to 200-300 American degree applications started. I can't know which of those are wanting to apply for their American degree unless you email it to me. It must be emailed to my office by midnight on March 1. And as you can see, you can email it to me, but if we have the intern, if you email it to the intern, which is intern@illinoisffa.org, the intern then can organize them into district folders, and then when we're reviewing them, we have them by district, and we can kind of go in a pretty methodical process in reviewing all the applications. The items that you need to email to me by March 1, to the intern, by March 1, is a PDF of your application, a copy, so a scanned copy or electronic copy of your most recent business agreement, so that would be your 2019 business agreement. So you scan and email that along with your PDF, and then it's a one-page document, and it contains two parts. It contains number 3, a brief description, no more than half a page, of your SAE, and describe your personal goals, educational goals, career goals that you would like to achieve in the next 10 years, no more than half a page. So you're essentially attaching 3 documents when you send your American in to intern@illinoisffa.org. You're sending your PDF application, you're sending your scanned copy of your business agreement, and you're sending a one-page document where you typed up on half the page a description of your SAE, and the other half the page what your future plans are. The interviewing committee use that description and your future plans as information for them to begin to do your interview. So they will ask a lot of questions based off your project to be very project specific, like your state degree interviews have been, like your proficiency award interviews have been. Once the application has been sent to us, we actually are reviewing the American FFA degrees on March 9th and 10th. Those are the days that we'll be taking care of American and state degree applications. And then shortly after that, I will send out an interview schedule. You'll be notified all of that via email. All of our correspondence is sent via email, except you will receive a hard letter in the mail that tells you whether or not you receive your American FFA degree. And the interview process, though, takes place on April 6th, 7th, and 8th here at the FFA Center in Springfield, 3221 Northfield Drive. Again, when we send you the email with the interview schedule, I will give you the address of the FFA Center and contact information for us to make sure you connect with us for your interview. The absolute latest that you'll be notified of if you are to be nominated for your American degree is May 1st. And in that notification, we'll invite you to state convention for a recognition program at our state convention. And then we'll tell you to be on the lookout for information from National FFA. National FFA will send their correspondence. It's typically in August, late August, state fair time or end of state fair time. And be paying attention to that, because that's how you will register your family and you to go to National Convention. And it will also give you all the details about them taking photos of you, where you line up, what time you line up, and it'll give you all the information about the National FFA process for the American degree. This year's state or national convention, the day you will be receiving your American, if you are a successful candidate, would be October 31st, and that is out in Indianapolis still. For all of you who are on the webinar, so that last piece is just all about the webinar, but that is our timeline. Application, business agreement, and the one-page document that's got your description and your career goals, that's due by March 1 via email. No paper copies this year. March 9th and 10th, we're going to review apps. Shortly after that, I'm going to send interview schedules. If you want to be considered for Star Farmer, Star Placement, Star Agri-Science, or Star Agribusiness, we do ask that you be present for that interview. Again, we use the interview to decide who our stars are. If you request a phone interview, that is on you. You need to request that in the email that you send us your application in. And when I put out the interview schedule, if yours needs to be changed to a phone interview, you need to email us that it needs to be changed to the phone interview and the phone number that you want us to call you. And then we will call you during that designated time. And then, as I said, if you are a phone interview, you do have to arrange for your record books to make it to the FFA Center for that interview. So a lot of times you'll send them with another student that's on the list, or you'll send them with your FFA advisor to get them to us. But that is our process. That is our timeline. Are there any questions? Let me go back to our chat bubble. It looks like we may have a question here. Can we email the complete record book report from the AET to the FFA Center? So that we can look at your book that way? Yes, we can do that. Let me type and answer this question. The question is, can we email the complete record report from AET to the FFA Center? Yes, you can do that. You can do that as long as you indicate that is what you're doing. So if you are emailing it to us, you're emailing it because you are in a phone interview. So it needs to be stated, these are the books for Nick James, and his phone and my phone interview, because I like it when you correspond yourself, interview is at blank time and day, and here is my phone number. Otherwise, I could be, or the intern could be getting record books and not knowing why we get them. So just make sure if you're going to email us your books in that way, just indicate that it's for my phone interview on this date, and this is the phone number to call me at. So back to the document here. Are there any questions, any further questions about our timeline or our expectations? I have already received, and so has our intern, American degree applications, and a couple of them have already failed to attach the document that states this is the description of my SAE and these are my future goals, as well as the business agreement. So then we've got to email you and ask you to do that. So please make sure you pay attention to that and send that to us the first time. Again, we will email you and remind you to get that sent, but it has to be sent to us prior to the interview. So if there are no further questions about that, then I will dig into AET. One more reminder, where to find all of the pieces I just talked about. Community services here at the top, right up here at the very top one. Those are the community service ones. Illinois procedures for the American degree, the document I just talked about was right there, and then right above it is our intent. That is where you can find those pieces of information. Again, I think several of you successfully already found that because you're on the call or on the webinar. So let's talk about AET. I am going to log in as a student. Let's do that. Maybe it's not letting me log in as a student. Let me try. Yeah. So as we're going into Degree Application Manager, this is where your American Degree application is located. And I do think that I thought I already started one. Let me go back. Let me check back out and try to log back in. Yeah.
I'm L0145.
I'm thinking I had an application, but I'm not seeing it where it's at right now. Maybe I should search for myself. Let's see, Dunkelmeyer. We started one last week so that I could show you how to, oh, nope, don't bring in that many R's. Can't spell my own name right. Not coming up. Not there. So what I wanted to show all of you is the opportunity to go in and convert. I think the biggest question we have for everybody is how to convert your Easy Records into your
into the app. Kildu still has all his kids' paper. Hey, Kilburn at Montroseville. This last group gets an American Degree or paper kids. Paper books.
There it is. There's Mindy example. There I'm at. Okay. So as students who are trying to enter in your information from Easy Records, just taking your numbers from those last years, you have two things that you need to do. The first thing you need to do is check your profile. Make sure that your personal profile information is here. So as you're going in here, you want to update and edit any of this information. So you can see I don't have very much information in here at all, but I'm going to, it's going to copy my address, and I just plug that information in there. So when we go to look at, and you can see right here, it says 69% of my information has been complete. And then I go down here to update my contact information. I'm going to plug in my cell phone and my email address. I'm going to hit save, and now I went from 69% to 77%. So when you're checking your profile, you want your profile to be 100% complete. Are there any questions about the profile page? I had a question about when you email the book, can you email the book the same email as the documents? Yes, the same email is fine. If you are emailing books. Thank you for asking that. As you can see, I can go in and edit. The last piece I have to edit are my parents' names. Oh, that's just my father. So I'm just going to do that, and you can see I went from 77%. I'm still 77% because I didn't finish this. So that is the profile. You need to make sure you finish profile. The next piece that you need to enter in your book, this is your AET book that will feed your application, and we'll get to the application here in a bit. But the next thing that you want to feed in the book, you want to click on Journal. So the first thing you did was profile. You put your information in your profile. You make sure it says 100%. Next thing you do is you jump into the Journal, and you go down to Time in your Community Service Activities. So the group that I served was Greater Decatur Blood Drive. That's who I worked for. I worked for the Greater Decatur Blood Drive. And I worked the event in promoting and welcoming guests to the blood drive. I told you my typing is terrible. I'm so embarrassed. Oh, look, it corrects it for you. How nice is that? That's a good thing to know. So you worked the blood drive, and you cleaned up and set up. Give as much description as you can. That way they can't question how much work did you do. And I don't have any pictures, so I'm just going to hit save. Oh, I need to put a date. I'm going to put that I did this. You can't do it in 2020. It's got to be. So you may have to walk it back to when you were a freshman, and maybe you did this on February 13th, 2014. And then you hit save, and that entry's there. The other thing I could have done is Greater Decatur Blood Drive, and maybe I did this on 2/14 of 2015 as well, but this time I only did cleanup. Oops, let me type that. Cleanup the blood drive, and I worked 3 hours, and then I'm going to hit save and enter another, and then it's going to automatically let me enter in another one. So what you want to do is look at your community service that you've done all of your years in FFA. If you're already in AT and this is already in there, you're fine. It will feed the application. If you're converting over from paper books or AEZ records, you look at each year, you put your dates in, you put who you did the event for, and then you put your description. If you hover over the question mark, it'll give you a very cut and dried piece of information for community service. I shared that whole big document from National FFA, but right here it tells you. The group is who you serve. The group cannot be FFA or your chapter since you are a member. It doesn't mean you can't work for FFA. It means the FFA can't be benefiting from this event. So the FFA event would be better listed as an FFA-related activity. So, and again, it isn't saying you can't work for your church. It's saying you can't work for your church, and your church is the one who benefits from it. So the best thing to do is to name right here who you served. So if the FFA chapter served Toys for Tots, you put Toys for Tots here, and then in the description you put that there. So hopefully that is very helpful to you doing community service. Then the next thing that all you have to do if you're paper books or EZ Records and you're trying to plug in your years of EZ Records into AET, this is your next step. You go to Finances. When you go to Finances, you're going to click on SAE Cash Entries in Entrepreneur and Research. And then I'm going to enter in my cash expenses, and I'm going to, I have to choose my experience, and I'm saying that 2017 Elbridge Farms, that's my experience. Probably should back up and show you how to put that in. And then I'm going to put Other as my expense, and I'm going to put that it was $100. I'm using, or 1,000. I'll use 1,000 there. We're going to use round numbers. And I'm going to type in all expenses that year, or I'm going to type in all swine expenses that year. That's my description for it, my memo, so I know what it is. So the enterprise or the experience is this. What I spent it on was Other, because Other then means all expenses, and then there you go. You can save and add another entry, and then we can go down and add in another one. back here on the date, I need to make that be, so I was a freshman, 2014, so I'm going to make that 12/31/2014. 2014 is the date that I made my entry. And save and return.
No.
So when I go back to finances, and then I want to add in my cash income, I do the same thing. I'm going to put 12/31/2015. That's, oops, I got to get my numbers right. 2015. I'm going to choose my experience. Same thing. My income is other income because it's everything. I'm going to say it was $2,000. Again, being round numbers, and it's going to be all swine income.
Put a hunk of meat in the crock pot.
That year. Okay? So if you put in, that's how you can save, or that's how you can enter in all of your expenses and all of your income from Easy Records or from paper books into AET for that, and then that will feed the application. So when I look here, you can see those were some of the entries that I made. The other way you can do that is I clicked on finances, but instead of actually clicking on my financial entries, I went over and I clicked on review and edit your financial entries or project experience manager. Either one of those is going to take me here, and if I want to edit it, I can edit it through here. The other thing you have to check is then here's your clipboard, and this is where I put my description. I had a placement enterprise too. I worked for Designer Landscape Trimming Hedges. I click Save, and then my description is there. I don't have a description right here for Elvidge Farms Enterprise, so I need to put what is it? What did I do? So in 2017, I raised crops, and in 2015 or 2018, I raised corn and soybeans. So then you put your description there, and it saves it. So that's another checklist too. That helps you see that your annual review is right there. It tells you those things are done. So in a very quick nutshell, the 3 things you have to do when taking Easy Records or paper books into AET is starting your book and making sure your profile is accurate. So you're going to look here for your personal profile. Again, mine's still only 77% done. The other piece you're going to check on is make sure your classes are checked. It's the classes that you were in. Those are all there. Then the next piece is journal and your community service. So you're going to put in your community service year by year, and then you're going to put in your finances. And when you're doing finances, you're just going to click here, and you can enter your cash income, your cash expenses. Again, you can take that whole year and put all expenses in as other, and then label it all swine expenses for 2015, and you put them there. The same way with the cash entry. So that's how you input, or that's how you create your AET book that will feed the application. If you're already in AET, you've made all these entries, it will just automatically feed the app. But this is how you can take Easy Records and paper books and feed it into here that will feed your app. What question?
Mindy, Mindy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, quick question. What about beginning an inventory for animals as well as beginning cash, stocks, and those kind of things? How do we start that off if we're going to an AET in?
Yes. Eric, do you see where it says beginning values in this blue box here under AET Finances?
Yes.
Yes. If you click on that blue box, beginning values, you can, so my first day of ag was August 11th of 2014. You can put current projects, what you have, non-current machinery, equipment, and fixtures, any loans or liabilities, what you have on hand in any of those areas. You can edit those and put those there, and then you would just hit save, and that would add those to it.
So I see where you can put all the cash and checks, but if she's got any stocks or insurance policy value, I cannot find for the life of me anywhere in here to enter those as a starting value.
I may have to get back to you on that, Eric. I'm not positive that I can answer that. So you're talking stocks, what?
Yeah, so cash on hand and checking account, both of those, savings and checking, that's easy. That's right there in that report.
Yeah, and then if you look at like non-current, it shows you animal, machinery, land, land improvements, current projects, just tells you your projects. So I don't know that, and I'll check to even, what was it?
Yeah, it was stocks, and then it's the things that are in the white pages in the Easy Records is stocks as well as any insurance value. She has an insurance policy.
Yes. Well, I may have to check on that for you. That's a good question. I don't, other than where I showed you with that beginning value, I don't know where else that could go. So let me get back to you on that one, okay? Any other questions on profile, journal, or finances? Then the next thing we're going to go to is the report. I'm going to click on Degree Application Manager. It's going to show that I have started an American Degree. I started an American Degree last Friday. I'm going to open up my application. Now, I have a few things because I'm not really a student. I have some snags on mine. But if you look at my cover, you'll see that I'm not complete on all of my information. And if I went to look at my checklist, it's going to tell me the things that I'm missing from my application. So my application's in pretty bad shape. But again, I'm just using this to show you. The cover is fed by your profile. So that's why it's very important you have all the information on your profile that we talked about.
What do we have? We have Hub.
I'm not going to, my membership check isn't going to match because I'm not a real student. But here's my basic setup page. My basic setup page is fed again by what I checked
on Friday, and I got so far to where I know how to do it.
Placement or entrepreneurship.
They're all extra credit. 2 credits.
Whoever's working on a crock pot needs to push mute. You're over talking Mindy. We can't hear Mindy.
Where I showed you that clipboard and it showed that I worked for Designer Landscape, that's where this description is going to fall, okay? So back in here under finances, and we looked at this project manager and this clipboard. Because that clipboard had a green check for Designer Landscape, that fed my description. So make sure when I tell you these things, I'm just trying to make the connections for you so that you can see them. So there's my job at Designer Landscape. It put the money in there that I worked. It put the description. Then I look at my entrepreneurship and look where I already had that 10 acres where I raised crops. We do want you to be more specific than raise crops. I do want you to say raise corn and soybeans or raise whatever animals. The more you add in your description, the stronger your application is, the less questions it will bring, and the less questions, the more likely you are to go through the process with no snags. If you are intending to be a star at all, you need to take up every icon they give you in that description, because the more information you provide to them in that, the better. Speaking of star, you can select in the process that you, on the cover page, you can select that yes, you want to go through the star battery, or you can select no. If you have no answer, then it's going to be no. But if you want to be considered as a star, you can start working on your star battery now. It is not required for the interview that we have on the 6th through the 8th, but the more you provide to us ahead of time, the better, the stronger candidate you will be. Then it dropped in all my finances that I put in. It put all my year-end expenses. It dropped everything where it was supposed to drop. And again, we fed that information to my AET book that then dropped it into my application. I'm not showing you an application that doesn't have, that's completely met. I'm just showing you the process of entering the information from Easy Records or paper into it. Again, if you're already AET, this will all be fed into this. The pieces that you need to pay attention to are if you have questions or you don't know what something means, you hover over the green question mark and it will explain it to you. All of these pages, all of the numbers will come from all the information that you've already dropped in. Everything is pretty self-fed after that. The page that will concern you is the earned and invested. This is going to tell you where if you have met or not met for your American degree. Again, I haven't met the requirements because I don't have enough money productively invested in the option 1, and I haven't made enough earnings in option 1. In option 2, I didn't insert any unpaid hours. If I had over 2,250 unpaid hours in my placement project, that would say met, and I can show you where to go back and put that information. One thing I do want to make sure that everyone understands, entrepreneur records for the American FFA degree, they do not allow you to count unpaid hours. Their philosophy is if you are raising corn and soybeans, all the hours you put in are towards that crop then is your payment. There is no such thing as an unpaid hour in entrepreneurship. If you are working for Elvidge Farms or you are working for Bunselmeyer Farms and part of your payment is the proceeds from 11 acres, then that is a placement project. And there is such a thing as these are the hours I worked for my 10 acres. These were my unpaid hours. And so there is such a thing as unpaid hours in placement, but there is no such thing in entrepreneurship as unpaid hours. Now, I will say, in Illinois, we do allow unpaid entrepreneurship hours to be entered in the state degree application. I think that's one of the things that Illinois continues to do, because we do understand that there are times when kids truly do own their own livestock. I'll say horses, for example, and the opportunity for them to make money off the hours they invest isn't always there. So we do allow them to keep all unpaid hours as a way to begin to earn the state FFA degree. But National FFA does not allow any entrepreneurs to use unpaid hours to earn the American FFA degree. That is a cut and dried rule. There is no way around it unless you want to document a placement book, a placement enterprise, and document unpaid placement hours. That's the only way that will be allowed. If you have more questions about that, don't hesitate to ask them now, or ask them in an email, or ask them in the chat bubble, but I do want to make sure that I make that very clear. Okay, we've got a couple questions in the chat bubble. I'll go ahead and answer them out loud, and then I will type in as well. For placement books, do they need to re-enter pay stubs into AET or just what the net is at the end of the year? All they have to do is enter in the net at the end of the year. So enter in net at the end of the year for placement enterprises. Okay, and then the next question we have is, if they purchase animals throughout their project, do you have to put them in the non-current finances as a purchase? Okay, I'm going to have to go back and actually open that up and look at that. Where you enter net at the end of the year. Okay, so that's back in finances. Let me continue through the application, and then I'll go back to finances and AET and answer those questions. Community service. This is where my community service fell. You could see when I put that I did community service in 2015, my 3 hours showed up, but I missed my 5 hours. Must have done something wrong. So let's go investigate what I did wrong in my community service. Right now, I'm not meeting because I only have 3 hours the 1 year I cleaned up with the blood drive. But that's how it feeds it. As you can see, when your checklist has all met, then it's going to allow you to submit for electronic signatures. In the electronic signatures, this is where you type your name. You'll type your advisor's name. And you submit and the advisor will submit their information. I have to put my father's email address there. My father does not have one of those, so that doesn't exist. And then if you have your principal or administration, you put their name and their signature. Again, this is fed from the cover page. So that information comes from cover. So this is where I would put my dad's email address. This is where I would put my administrator. Where's my administrator? My administrator's back up. Name of high school, school phone. This is where that information would come from. So that's back to my checklist.
That right.
That's the application. Let's go back to finances and answer some of the questions we had here.
Good.
Now look at the chat bubble again. Where do you enter net, and then the purchased animals. Okay. So when we talked about the end of the year finances, this is where I clicked on for you to enter in all of those expenses or that income. So you can use that as a quick way to do that. You can also enter in you can get into more in depth, and you can put in your full year summary in this as well. But this is where you would put those transactions. I think the question on the chat bubble was, if they purchase animals throughout their project, do you have to input them in the non-current finances as a purchase? Yes, and this is where you would put those. Let's see. And I did make a mistake on this financial entry, so let me go here and see what I did wrong. I will edit that.
All right, I took care of mine in Houston.
And I put swine end of the year. This is my expenses, so that's all the expenses for that year. So save and return.
I took care of mine.
And that took care of my, okay, that's got my two. Oh. Okay, that fixed that. Has my description there. I'm looking for one more thing. Go back here. Review and edit my financial entries. So that will take care of that. So if I have a new entrepreneur expense, I can click on new entrepreneur expense. I can choose my enterprise, and then I can choose something specific if I want it to be like inventory for resale, or if I wanted it to be these are all my cash expenses. I need to find non-cash expenses. Hang on a second. No, that's reviewing it. But I can add a new expense. Here's my expense. And I think you could list it as other, especially since you're just doing a summary. If it's in your book already, your question relates to placement. So placement, okay, so let me tackle one at a time. If you're doing your year end, you can just list it as other. That will feed the application. That should be fine, but let's go back to, you can also put it in your non-cash inventory as, if you're going to sell it, items sold, or you're going to do an add new. And then, like I said, it gets a little bit more complicated, but it would, if you're doing AET books, this is already going to be fed. But this is where you would put that information. Does that answer your question, Cindy, first, about the animals purchased? Let me copy the message. Now, for the for placement, if you're doing finance, if you're doing your finances for placement, we can look at mine. I have 2 placement projects here. So I said that I worked for Designer Landscape. I put in my gross income. I put in what my taxes were withheld. I didn't have any expenses. I put in the number of hours, and then I saved, and I could add another entry. So I could make another entry for, I'll make it 12/29/2015. I'll put it in for my freshman year, and I'll say I made $1,000, and they withheld $200 in taxes, and I had no expenses, and I worked 260 hours. That's just an example. That's how you would add in your, if you're a placement, that's how you're going to add it in. You can just take your whole income from the project, the taxes that were withheld from the year, the expenses if there were some, and then the total number of hours. Now, let me go back to Chat Bubble and see if I'm answering your question. It's specifically back to Michelle answering your question, where do you enter the net at the end of the year? Your question relates to placement. If your student is already doing a placement AET book, they would already have, they'd be entering in those pay stubs. This is just, I was just trying to show students that are pulling their easy records, because now the American Degree application is locked. So that's just pulling from your totals from Easy Record and your placement and dropping those hours in. So I'm not sure, Michelle, if I've answered your question, but I will type that in and see if that does take care of that. Okay, so that answers Michelle's question. Back to Cindy's question. So if they are buying breeding animals throughout the years, they have to enter them all individually as non-current inventory, or they can just bulk it. You can do either one. I think it's going to probably be more accurate if you entered them in over the years. But again, we have said that you can just enter in your end of the year values, and that will take care of that. Again, try that, see what the application looks like, and then send it to me, and I'll take a look at the application. And if I feel like it's lacking information, Cindy, then I'll say, okay, we probably do need to go back and enter it in one at a time. But we have said, because we're pulling information over from AET or from Easy Records into AET, they can just do end of year values. So let's just try that, and then let's see if we feel like the application is missing some pieces. Have you started, let me type that into your question bubble, have you started an application that I could look at, like Cindy, specifically you, if you want to visit over the phone afterward, or is there an application that somebody's willing for us to look at to do that?
Mindy, while you're typing, I'm struggling. Went in just like we talked about it, entered each of her sales in. We did it together as a expense and an income, and all of a sudden, for some reason, it's not carrying through, and she's showing that she's made over $250,000 in income so far. And I cannot for the life of me figure out why it's not carrying the expenses through to take off of that or whatever. So that's a one-off.
So,
you and I can look at it tomorrow and figure out.
Eric, maybe I should, if you know.
Okay, that's fine. Yep.
I might look at her specifically, because maybe
yep.
it's not pulling from the right enterprise.
I'm guessing I may not be getting it right. The other struggle that you didn't mention that I'm finding now going through this was when you have to enter, you've got non-ag income, babysitting, gifts, those kind of things. You've got to account for that somewhere in there so it matches up to your white pages on the Easy Records. And that takes some time to find that spot and enter that stuff in there. Any non-ag income, any non-FFA income, gifts and cash received. There's a spot for that in there, but we had to enter that in there for every year as well. So. And
I will show you that. Thank you for bringing that up. Back under finances, down here, there is a non-SAE entry, personal and educational. And this is where you would put non-ag earnings, you would mark it there. You would, the vendor is, maybe it's the Herons, I babysit for them. The amount, $325. The memo, I'm going to say it's babysitting. That was my non-ag earnings, and I can hit save. And you're going to have to type those in individually, but you can also put in here, this is your stocks, bonds, and life insurance, Eric. No, that's buys. This is where you.
There's no, from what I can find, there's no way to account for any of the buttons. It's in the white pages, so the books will be out of balance from your Easy Records to AET, because I've gone through every freaking, basic icon. There's not in the end. So. Did you
the buy bonds, stocks, and life insurance under here? What happens when you put a value there?
I guess I could do that, but it's an insurance account and a couple of cheap stocks that she had when she started her freshman year. So she really hasn't bought them. It's more that she brought them into her book. So, and that's another question I've got you, and I guess I can't type to do a chat bubble, so I'll ask you. She started her coursework on, September 1, essentially 2013, but the record book didn't start until Jan 1, 2014. Will that impact things? Because AET shows it as a September 13th or September 2013 beginning, but all of her data and records are really 2014 records. Follow what I'm saying there?
Yes, I do, and it should be fine. Let me go back and see when my start date was to make sure. Yeah, and so when did I say my start date was? My start date was 8. So I will have a column for that year. So if you don't have any entry in there, you can adjust. You have to have your teacher adjust your start date to January 1 of 2014.
That's what I figured I had to do because there's a huge gap in that. And I guess back to our stock and bond deal here. Like I said, it's not a lot of money, but I will try to enter that as a purchase on January 1, 2014, even though it really truly isn't. But then she shows an expense which she really doesn't have. So that's what's got me confused how to do that.
Let me go back to profiles, manage profile. That's probably going to be. I'm figuring out one thing. What was what did you say?
Got you on mute. Sorry. So back to our stock and bonds question here. And there's not a lot of money. I think she's got it's less than 500 in stocks and a decent size cash value. But I'm afraid if I enter that, as I talk through it, as I enter that as a January 1, 2014 stock purchase, then that shows up as an expense, but it's really not ever been an expense. It was just some stocks that she got over the years from one of her aunts. So, it almost needs to be on-hand inventory at the beginning of the project, but there's just no way to put that in there anywhere.
Right. No, because especially beginning of the project, because it's not necessarily project related, they're not going to let you. No opportunity for you to put that there.
I guess you could call it cash on hand. You could call it cash on hand, but it's really not that because it accrues income over the year. Yeah.
Well, you can't convert it to cash immediately.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I'm going to have to get back to you on that one because I really do think you could plug it in here as the buys, bond, stock values, life insurance, and put your number there. I think that's the best place to tell you to do that.
Okay. Okay.
But again, let me make sure I get that question answered correctly. But back to your class thing, your class document, when you click on record your school ag class schedule, that's going to have the classes. Those are the classes that I have for me to be in. If in my start date, we put the start date is here, but you can have the teacher adjust the start date to be that one. If the teacher goes in, and I can show teachers how to do that if we need to do that right now, but the teacher will need to adjust that start date if that needs to be adjusted for your student. And I can probably take care of that for my.
I'll let you take care of it. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. What other questions do we have? Let me go back to chat bubble. Cindy, I think you said you'll call about it later. Is there anything, please feel free to ask now either over the phone or in the chat bubble. I am happy. This is the way to get the answers to the questions. My goal is that this is helpful to others that have attended. I know I've dropped some attendees here. Hopefully everybody got the information they needed and dropped out of the call. But please take the time to ask the questions now. The other thing I wanted to point out was that over here under student help, and I put this out on the listserv here recently, if you click on awards, there is entering previous year's records. They have a whole step-by-step document that walks you through really everything I said, probably 10 times more eloquently, and answers that, all of that information far better than I do. My experience in using the book is very, very limited because I'm not in the classroom teaching it to your students like you are, and I'm not 9 times out of 10, I'm just working with the application itself. So I am learning book more as we get here more recently, but this document will help you very much. And I will say that they also probably have a video that would walk students through that, establishing and moving over previous year's books. So there's all types of videos there. I'm not asking you or telling you need to look at those, but I will say the student help button, this document, entering your previous years, this is something that is very helpful. And I did just attach this to our most recent listserv. And honestly, Eric, when I said I'm going to look further into it, one of the first things I'm going to do is check in the help button and see what AET tells me. And then if I can't find my answer from there, I'm going to reach out to them directly. Again, my gut says to do it here in this part right here.
Because it works for fun.
But I'd also have to see how it plays out. And so I can go into Maddie's application and look at that directly. What other questions can we ask for the group? Go back to the chat bubble. Make sure I answer all this. Michelle, are you clear and good with your placement students? I think I got those questions answered. Liz, I got your question answered. Clayton. Okay. I think it looks like we've answered most questions. Just, again, a couple of things I want to make sure we highlight. If you have questions in this process, the 3 things you need to, 3 areas you're playing around in is the profile. Make sure all your information in the profile is correct with both your profile and the classes that you're in, the journal, entering in your community service, and then your finances. Those are the 3 key pieces if you're converting Easy Records and Paperbook into the American Degree application. And then when you're actually looking at the application itself, you have to get one started. I have mine here. You're going to be looking at your checklist. Whatever you have that says error or not met, you can click on that and it'll tell you what's wrong or what you don't have there. So very helpful tools within the application itself. If there aren't any further questions, I don't want to keep people beyond for an unreasonable amount of time or any amount of time that you don't need. If you do have questions, I'm happy to, again, answer them over the phone or in the chat bubble and make sure we share those with everybody. With that, I see no other typed questions. I don't hear any other questions. Please interject if you do. Just a reminder, back on our website is where you can find the community service outline or guidelines for American and State Degree, as well as the intent, as well as our Illinois procedures. At any time you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me or call me. I'm happy to answer those, and good luck. Wishing all of the candidates good luck on their American FFA degree. So at this time, I'm going to wrap up the call and thank you all. If you have further questions, let me know. I will say Eric and Cindy, I will look at those applications specifically. Eric, I know to look at Maddie's, but Cindy, if you want to let me know what application you want me to look at specifically, I will do that, and we will go from there. So thank you all very much for your time. I'm going to end the call at this time.
Thank you, Mindy.
Thank you guys very much. Have a great day.
You too.